Genealogy is learning your family history. It is learning where you come from and the shoulders that you stand on so that you can walk around and just be proud of who you are. Hi, I'm Dr. Deborah Abbott. I am a Cleveland native, born and raised here. I'm a graduate of East Tech High School. I attended Cuyahoga Community College, graduated from there. I am a graduate of Tuskegee University. I have a bachelor's and a master's from them and a Ph.D. from Kent State. But my mother was born in Virginia and came here with her parents probably when she was about 9 months old. And my father is deceased as well and came here from Georgia. He was born in Georgia but came here from Kentucky when he probably was about 9 years old. Genealogy and ancestry is very, very important. And I think it's important because it gives us strength as African Americans. It tells us that we are somebody. We've been used to people telling us who we are not. And if we know our history, we will learn very quickly that we are somebody, we have contributed to the world, and probably will learn that without it, there would be a lot of things here that would not exist. What is the research process? Well, when I'm teaching genealogy, I'm asking people to really start with the U.S. Federal Census. For me, that is the basic of this, the basics. Start with now and work backwards. A lot of people don't want to do that. But start with now, one family at a time, and decide who you are looking for. Find a descendant in 1950, and then we work backwards. Because it is important to know all of the people who surround your ancestor so that we can make links as we move further back into history. And if what you want is to be able to locate that enslaver, we need to know all of the people that live around your ancestor. Let me tell you this, I found my ancestors, I think, like everybody else would. We didn't have very much oral history in my house. And so I had to really depend on stories that I had heard in the house. Heard my grandmother talk about. Sometimes my mother would be talking about some history, but my grandmother and grandfather mostly. And my grandmother, I knew, was from North Carolina. And I knew when she was born, at least the date that she gave me, that was the day she was born. And so I knew who her sister was. I knew the name of her mother. And so I started in the United States Federal Census looking for my grandmother as a child, and I found her. And then from that, I was able to move backwards. But by the time I got to the 1870 census, I could not locate or determine if any of the white individuals that surrounded them were the enslavers of my family. And so then what I had to do was put my family to sleep and look at all of the white individuals that had land. That was important. And to see if I could determine, just by researching them, each one, if by chance my family would fall out of their records. And so I looked for, let me say this, my great-grandfather had himself listed in the North Carolina 1870 census as being born in Virginia. Everybody else was born in North Carolina. Almost every African American that was on that census that had the same last name as my ancestors said they were born in Virginia. So that gave me a clue that maybe I need to look in Virginia for the enslaver. And so that's what I did. I made took a big chance, hoping that the last name would be the same. And that's how I started. And I looked in the counties that crossed the counties where my ancestors lived, found about 10 people that might match, put them in alphabetical order, and said a prayer. And hoped that as I traced each one of those families, my ancestor would come out of it. I looked at tax records, I looked at land records, I looked at wills and probates, inventories, appraisals. And in one of those individuals, my ancestors were listed in the will by name. That process probably took me, I'm going to say, maybe 6-7 years. This is not something that happens quickly. It is something that takes time. It is something that you have to really concentrate and pay attention to people who are missing, people who are there and they shouldn't be. I have to put it that way, because sometimes you've got neighbors who are sitting in somebody's house and they shouldn't be there, and you got to find the place where they're supposed to be. But you have to really be able to analyze, take the families and analyze them and know when somebody is missing, and then stop and start trying to find them. And this is where our vital records, our birth records and death records, divorces, I love divorces because they give us all kinds of information that we might not know, but all kinds of records like that you need to look for. Well, in 1870, which is going to be the first time that you will see an African American that has been enslaved, keep in mind that the census is for free people. So if your ancestors were free, they will be listed in the U.S. federal census. So if they are enslaved, you're going to look at that 1870 census, and you're going to have to pay attention to everybody that is listed there, every household. And so I'm particularly interested in the white people that live around them, and I'm looking to see how much land they have and how much property, because that is on the census records. And I'm also looking to see where those individuals are born. I'm also looking to see whether or not the African Americans that are on that list, if they are born in the same place as my ancestor, and if they're carrying the same last name. And I'm paying attention to all of that, and I have to put that, sometimes I say put that in a spreadsheet, because then those are going to be your clues. And I think another thing that we don't think about is that I think we tend to think that when slavery came, our ancestors just got up and left. They did not. Where were they going? They didn't have any money. And normally they would just stay where they were. So I always check to see how many black people are sitting near a white person that has a lot of land, because that might be the enslaver. They haven't gone anywhere. And so sometimes at 1870, I look to see how many African Americans are on a sheet. I think there are, 40 people on a sheet. And when you look at that, if I see a sheet that has maybe 3 sheets, 2 sheets, and everybody on those sheets are African American, I know I'm looking at a plantation. They haven't gone anywhere. So then it's up to me to find out who owns the property where they are sitting. There are agricultural schedules. I can see who owns property. I can see what they're growing. I can see how many horses and pigs and things that they have, how many wagons. So it's a matter of putting your family to sleep and researching the people that are around them. One other thing, my ancestors last name was Lipscomb. And there were only black Lipscombs in that 1870 census, but every black Lipscomb said they were born in Virginia, every head of household. There was nobody in that county that I could find, in that entire county, last name Lipscomb. So I go back and I pull all the names of the white people that live around them. And so what happened was that I could not find any Lipscombs, white Lipscombs, in that county. And so what I did was then go back and look at the white people who were in that county and their land. And there were a couple of white landowners who said they were born in Virginia. And there was one person that was born in North Carolina, but his wife was born in Virginia. All right? And so I make a note of that. And after I was able, and I told you before, that I looked over in Virginia and looked in several counties, and then I was able to locate the enslaver. And when I checked the enslaver's land ownership, when he dies, the land's got to be divided. And there was land that was divided in North Carolina, Caswell County. And that land went to his daughter, who was the wife of the white family that was living right up above my home. So she had inherited that land where my ancestors were living. So technically you're looking at not the enslaver, but the enslaver's daughter. And she was right up above them. But if I hadn't stopped and put my people to sleep and tried to find out who the enslaver was, I wouldn't have found her, probably. I may have found her, though, because eventually I would have had to research that family. Do I recommend DNA testing? It depends. If you have not, this is just my opinion, if you have not done the paper, and when I say paper, census records, vital records, land deeds, wills, I'm not sure that DNA helps you when you are talking to someone that you think is related to you and you all can't have a conversation. If they don't know any more than you or don't know which ancestor will connect you, I don't know how that works. But don't get me wrong, DNA is an asset. It really is. And it's just another tool that we use in genealogy. And I've used it myself because the oral history in my own family was that my grandmother and her sister did not have the same father, okay? And I didn't have any records that would tell me otherwise. They're both born in the late 1890s. There are no vital records for them in the 1890s. So there's no birth, no death. I found a marriage, and it had the name of the mother and father, but it still didn't answer my question, okay? And so what we did was, or what I did was have my uncle, who was the last living person from my grandmother, and then her sister had a daughter, and I had her to take a DNA test, and I had my uncle to take a DNA test. Those would be direct line to those two ladies. And then I took it just so I could see where I would fall. And when the results came back, the three of us stayed in the same, I'm gonna call it the same rotation, because when I opened up my uncle's DNA results, the person next to him, the number 2 person next to him, was me. And then my cousin. When I opened up my cousin's DNA, the person next to her was my uncle, and then me. We kept those 3 spaces, we just was rotating around. The result of that was that my grandmother and her sister did not have the same father. The African American Cultural Gardens is important because it gives us an opportunity to know who we are, to probably learn things that we didn't know before, things nobody ever told us. It allows us to learn that there are people who have come from God knows where and have made it. And I think that it's important that we understand the shoulders that we stand on and understand that those are the people who have allowed us to be where we are today. So I think it's important that we have the African American Gardens. But we're lucky here in Ohio, all of our libraries have Ancestry, Ancestry.com. And you can use Ancestry.com for free in our public libraries. They have it. You cannot use it from home because then that may cut into their subscriptions. But you can go to our public libraries. You can go to the Shaker Heights Library, the Cleveland Public Library. You can go to any of our libraries and use Family Ancestry.com for free. FamilySearch.org is the one I was talking about from Utah. It is free and it is also on your library website, but you can use that one from home. So you don't have to go to the library to use Family Search. And for Family Search, what they're going to ask you to do is to create an account. And that account, they're not going to be trying to sell you anything or try to turn you into a Mormon or anything like that. What they're doing is just keeping up with who's looking at records and what records seem to have the most traffic. And it will allow you to be able to look at almost everything that they have. I chose genealogy as a career path because I was so very, very interested in my own family history. I knew none of it. And I started it when I was still working. And I worked for Cuyahoga Community College for 35 and a half years. And the more I got into genealogy, the more I realized how much it costs, because it's not cheap. And I think people, that's another drawback, is that they think that this, if they have to pay for a record, they don't want it. But that record might be the key to getting you back further. And so once I realized how much it was going to cost me, and this, keep in mind now, this is before we got all of this internet stuff. I started to take classes, and then I sold myself to the public libraries and said I can do beginning genealogy classes. That's so I could get money to buy those resources, to buy those databases, not databases, but the vital records and all the things that I needed. And then I just started to educate myself, and pretty soon people start calling me to do things, and it was hard to do it because I had to go to work. And then one day I said, do I want to keep working or do I want to do genealogy? And that helped a little bit for me to stop going to work and then to take up genealogy. But I like doing it, I like teaching it, and I really like it when people will follow instructions. Some people don't want to follow instructions. They want to do what they want to do because they already have in their head what they're looking for. Nothing wrong with that. It's just that we may have to start in a place where you don't want to be because you think you already know it. And the object is prove what you know. Prove what you think you know. I'll give you one example. My birth certificate says my father is born in Kentucky. He was not. He was born in Georgia. I tried to find a birth record for him in Kentucky. There was none. But when I started doing the census, I found him in Georgia. He was born in Georgia. So as the years have gone by, for whatever reason, he's told people he was born in Kentucky, but he was not. born in Georgia. He lived in Kentucky, but he wasn't born there. You can learn more about genealogy if you come to the Shaker Heights Public Library every fourth Saturday. When I say we, the African American Genealogical Society of Cleveland meets there every fourth Saturday at 10:30. And normally we have a speaker that lasts about an hour, and then we hold classes afterwards to help people with their genealogy. And then the other place would be the Cleveland Public Library, and they have a genealogy clinic. Most of the time I'm there, and it is every second Saturday of the month. It starts at 10:30 and it ends at 1:30. And you don't need an appointment. It's on the 6th floor of the Lewis Stokes building. All you need to do is just bring what you have and the information that you have. And there will be several members of our society who will be able to help you move through the process of locating your ancestors.